Alright, YouTube, it's a sad day to be a pro-economic migrant politician in Europe because the Germans apparently have begun to wake up at quite a fast clip. Now, this comes in the wake of some terrorist attacks in Germany. Previously, the Germans appear to have witnessed terrorism around Europe, and they said, well, it's not happening here. You know, our police are notorious for cracking skulls, and they'll just fucking lay waste to everything in their path if they need to. They're like a well-oiled blitzkrieging machine or something, so to speak. Now, they're renowned for being vicious. They're like a bunch of Dobermans or something. So they, I guess, thought that they were safe. Of course, now you've had several attacks in Germany. And a new Snap poll shows that something like 66% of the German public disagrees with how Angela Merkel is handling the refugee crisis. Namely, her response has largely been, oh, come on in. Yeah, we're not going to check your papers. We don't give a fuck where you're from. We don't care if you're actually from Syria. At this point, the majority of the so-called refugees in Europe are not Syrians. A large proportion are from North Africa, which, you know, unhelpfully, Obama helped fuck up Libya. That has something to do with it. Some are Egyptian, a lot of them are East African, they're from Somalia, they're from Sudan, places like that. A large proportion are from Pakistan, Afghanistan, and areas like that. And it's a mass exodus of millions of people into Europe, to the point at which you're talking about six-figure totals per year into single nations within the EU, let alone the EU itself. We're talking about several million people over not that long a span of time. You're also having to deal with the constant threat, and Erdogan is echoing this yet again for, I think, the third time now. Oh, well, I'll open the floodgates, let these 3 million refugees into Europe, and there's buttfuck that you can do about it, by the way. If you don't cooperate with me, if you harass me too much about the fact that I've basically become a dictator, and if you try to keep us out of the EU, even though I am basically a dictator who doesn't really give a fuck about democracy, let's face it, oh, I'll just flood the borders with these people. Now, what will end up happening, of course, is that those 3 million people, they'd get into Greece, they'd get into Bulgaria. The Greeks and Bulgarians will not deal with it. They also won't give much welfare to the refugees. They'll all be headed for Western Europe. They will simply march along the cobblestone roads all the way to Berlin and all the way to Paris, and there's literally nothing that these nations can do about it. That's why the EU will fail in time, because of the social alienation from this. If the Germans have woken up to the fact that Merkel's policies aren't working, then there is an exceptionally high degree of hope in my heart for the rest of Europe. Because the Germans are about the most stubborn individuals you can possibly imagine. Once they put their foot down in their self-guilt-tripped little exile from the world of reason, it is very difficult to convince them that, no, indeed, you're not a racist for wanting to keep out people who are Islamic zealots and may really want to rape your daughter or behead you for saying something unkind about Islam. It's very difficult to actually do that. Somehow, though, either because they were attacked or because there have been enough attacks overall or because the average German, their next door neighbors, no longer speak German or something like that, the average German appears to have actually inexplicably woken up. I didn't expect that to happen that fast. In fact, I was ambivalent on whether it would happen at all, honestly. Ask me 6 months ago, hey, do you think that the Germans will turn against the tide of economic migrants with a few refugees sprinkled in and finally begin questioning Frau Merkel's dictates over their country like some sort of retarded female version of Adolf Hitler? I would have said, yeah, probably not, maybe. But I don't hold out much hope. I think at this point the Swedes might be more likely to do that, which is saying something, because Sweden is shaped like a penis, and really the leaders of Sweden act like a bunch of dildo fuckers. They act like they have them shoved up their ass constantly. I wouldn't be surprised if numerous government officials there do in fact have anal beads in at all times to take care of their white privilege or something like that. Oh, that's right, they changed out all the government officials. Now you have to be, I guess, from the third world in order to even run for office in Sweden. I mean, it's surreal. Looking at it from over here where we don't really suffer from this problem, it's surreal to see that people that enjoy secularity, they understand that organized religion is generally negative. They're considered much more secular than the United States. are also accepting millions and millions of religious zealots into their nations. The more moderate among these economic migrants, I'm not talking about the Syrians, I'm talking about the bulk of the people coming in, which are not from Syria. Most of the economic migrants that they would consider moderate, we would consider outright zealots. We would class them as being perhaps more brutalizing than the most diehard Pentecostal snake oil salesman. We would class them as at least zealots, if not dangerous individuals. And there are a large number of them, not a majority, but a large enough number, that do engage in violence against non-believers because it's what they're used to. It's an unfortunate fact of life. In these countries of origin where many of these people are from, they have been raised up, in most situations, from a young age, unless they were from a very cosmopolitan center and generally a wealthy neighborhood within that cosmopolitan center. And so they may be kind of secular. You know, oh, I go to the mosque, but, you know, I tried bacon once, it was pretty good. Now I have a BLT once in a while. Outside of those regions, you go to Pakistan. You go to an upscale neighborhood in Karachi, you'll find people that generally are tolerant of the concept of secularity. They don't really care as much. You go out into the rural areas or into the poorer neighborhoods of any of the large cities in Pakistan, and you see shit like what happened not that long ago where a girl was stoned after, I think she helped another couple elope or something, and they took her out and stoned her, and the cleric and all the people were dancing around. Now, the government of Pakistan tries to crack down on this. They don't really control the rural areas very well. Osama was supposedly living there for a number of years right under their noses. I still think there was some shit going on there that the average American wouldn't like to know actually happened. Oh, Osama died of renal failure back in 2003. Sorry, I had a coughing fit there. You didn't hear that from me. Just Google Benazir Bhutto and then look her up on YouTube and see what she had to say about old Osama and how he was already fucking dead by that period of time. But yeah, a lot of these people coming into Europe are religious zealots. Now, I don't think the average European, in fact, I wouldn't care if some fucking person who's, yeah, I'm a Muslim, I believe in Allah, but, you know, I don't really give a fuck, I drink and eat bacon. If they're moving in, I'm not too worried about them becoming a terrorist or attacking me or something like that. Because it'd be like some Catholic moves in next door, but they never go to Mass. They don't really care. You know, they're pro-choice. They don't care about gay marriage. All they want to do is, like, you know, have some communion wine once in a while, and then they praise Jesus before they go to bed at night. I'm not really worried about that. I know they're probably not going to look at me funny because I wear a pentagram. But if 1 million people come into your nation and you really don't even know the composition thereof, pretty good indicator that about 80% of them believe in Sharia law, because that's about the proportion that believe in Sharia law. About half of them believe that you should kill gay people. There are currently millions of religious zealots in Europe that believe that it's acceptable to kill homosexuals. Some of them are restrained from doing so by legal systems, but in many cases these people fall through the cracks of the legal system because it has been termed racist to keep tabs on them. Or because these people, they put them on the dole, they put them in a shitty government house and expect them to lead a fulfilling lifestyle in a climate that's much colder than what they're probably used to, in a different continent that they're used to, where people speak a different language than what they're used to. They revert to tribalism, they segregate themselves into their own communities, and then you have a sort of cancerous tumor on secular society that begins to grow. By the way, it would be the same if these were zealot Christians from some third world nation that was very, very religious. It would be like having 1 million Christian zealots move into a generally secular society and begin ranting about how gays should die, abortion should be outlawed, and punching women out if they see them coming out of Planned Parenthood or something. Well, people would recognize that that's a problem, and they would try to do something about it. The fact that it is Islam and that many of these people are not European is the only thing that has enabled the governments of the European Union to say, people, you're a bigot if you don't agree with us. You're evil if you oppose our immigration plans. To the point at which they are openly censoring and sometimes attempting to prosecute people for going after the government about their claims, all of which are false, in Germany and elsewhere. The Germans conducted a sweep about a month ago of homes of people suspected of hate speech against immigrants online. but I haven't seen them sweep much in the way of those who are Islamic and believe that, yeah, gay people should probably be shot in the head because the, Hadith says, Quran says, Muhammad said. Well, Jesus said, Moses said, Muhammad said. Who gives a fuck what they said? I don't give a fuck what any of these people, real or imagined, said now or any time in the past. I'm not going to listen to that bullcrap, because that's a good way to fuck up your own nation by taking it too seriously. Unfortunately for the Europeans, their cultures are perceived as so weak by newcomers that there's no reason for them to assimilate. And that's really what they've projected. The European Union projects weakness, it doesn't project strength. There's a reason why the people of the UK rejected the proposal of staying in the EU. The EU said, oh, we're stronger together. Look how big our economy is. Look how great we are. Didn't work. Why? Because it doesn't project strength. Usually they talk in terms of, oh, pity us Europeans are responsible for every ill in the world. Boo-hoo-hoo, we need more diversity. And so it didn't really make sense when they suddenly switched when the Brexit vote was about to happen. Said, oh, whoa, we're so strong. We're a great Europe. Roar. Hear us roar like a lion. You don't. You squeak like a little dormouse or something like that. That's the problem with the European Union. Every nation in the EU should hold a referendum, and they should all abandon ship. They should rip the entire union apart, or leave it just Germany and a few vassal states, which wouldn't economically necessarily benefit them very much. Now, that's what should happen. Nobody benefits from this. Nobody benefits from mass migration from people who largely do not seek employment. If they seek employment, they're displacing people who are native workers. It's not xenophobic to suggest that. It's not xenophobic to suggest that the European population is not really growing because in most of these nations, the density is already too high for that to happen. Simply pumping yourself full of millions of migrants does not seem like a very good idea to me. Now, you may disagree, but that doesn't make me a racist, especially when, keep in mind, ever-present truth that nobody wants to admit. Islam's not a race. It has nothing to do with race. There are plenty of people that are homegrown Islamists in Europe, just as likely to commit a terrorist attack. The only real similarity is they happen to follow a certain doctrine within Islam that's violent. Just like Christianity. Christianity is a multiracial religion. The one thing unifying those Christians that tend to be violent is they're superstitious, backwards fucking bigots. No, not Unitarians. They're not a bunch of Episcopals. I saw a sidewalk sale here in my city earlier I went to. And the Episcopal church had something set up. They had like a little water tank, and there was a fucking Episcopal priest sitting there, and you could like pay, and you could throw a ball and try to hit the button and dunk the priest. I was really tempted to record myself doing that until I managed to dunk the priest. Because, of course, at the time I was like wearing a pentagram and a Christian Death shirt. So I thought, maybe next weekend I might do that. I need to bring the digital camera and have somebody that can actually record it. Oh man, wouldn't that be fucking hilarious? That's about all. Peace out.